Hi, good evening, first additional language. And that's both SP and FET. It's Monday, the 23rd of August. It's 20 past 5. So you've got an evening session with me. I thought I'd get in early this week and get my learning event going so you can get going on your assignments and everything else that you need to do. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. There you go. Slide share. And let's get moving. Okay. Just to let you know that yesterday I did upload an overview of assignment 1, going through the 4 sections that need to be included. There's also a note that you can go and read on assignment 1. So if you are feeling very confused because you don't understand what I want you to do, please go and check assignment 1. It's a video, 27 minutes on ECI, and you can then see what is really required in the first assignment. I hope it's going to help. Otherwise, get back to me. There we go. We are on week 3 already. So we are already getting moving. I think there are 12 weeks we need to get through, but we are making good progress. We've just got one more session to go and we finish unit 1 already. So we're already going to enter out writing the next time. Okay. So tonight we're going to look at selecting and designing appropriate language resources, what we can use to teach grammar. We've looked at integrated language teaching practices, and we've looked at language and structure as well. We're going to finish off next week with assessing language and grammar, and this will be important not only for assignment 1, but assignment 3 as well. Okay. I thought I would include this spreadsheet, although some people don't like it and fast forward past it, but I thought I'd just keep this going so you can see what's happening. As you can see for FET, the numbers are down. I think we had about 94 in semester 1, and 44 of you have done your online tracking, which is quite good. SPs also come down by about 100, over 200 in semester 1, and we've got 121 that are registered now, and good 97 of you completed your first online tracking. There we go, well done. Excuse me, and that's great stuff. Your next online tracking is due on the 29th, which is next Sunday. And the following, which is going to be a forum discussion, is on the 5th of September. We're looking at the spring solstice coming up, okay? Equinox. Okay, there's unit 1, the first lecture for week 1, which is looking about grammar. What do we do about it? Then we looked at integrated language teaching practices last week. Are you confused? How do we do this? And now tonight, the resources for teaching, followed next week by language assessment. Okay. Chapter 13 of Ferreira. So resources for CLT classes and lessons and approaches, I thought I would keep it on communicative language teaching because this is so important in the classroom, especially in the grammar class, where everything revolves around authentic use of texts, real texts, like letters, emails, brochures, posters, and you have a communicative activity where people actually your learners use the language all the time. That means they talk and they read and they listen and they write. So there's no set format. It doesn't have to be a textbook. It can be any material that you've downloaded or you want to use to teach any form of grammar in your classroom. And we looked a bit at that last week as well. So the underlying principle for CLT is that you must use language to learn and communicate. So you're going to learn what an adjective is really, but you can do it in a context where you're not actually learning it as a rule. Does that make sense? Yes, we're going to speak about it, we're going to read about it, we're going to write about it, and we're going to listen about it. And you're going to use authentic, real material, things that make sense to the students, which are part of their world, things like all these social issues like bullying, diversity, culture, poverty, studying, education, all these powerful and important issues. So as a teacher teaching grammar, you should have meaningful input that you're going to give them in the right text that you're going to use through a context that you're busy working through, which could be a theme, could be so many different things, but it's contextually, it's based on a speaking, a reading, a writing, or a listening text. And you're going to use these texts for opportunities to teach grammar. We're going to see how we're going to do this tonight. So real life situations are going to be used to teach grammar. This is quite a cute little cartoon. Maybe it's what happens in all our classrooms, even in mine. The students are saying, what am I learning? They've got no idea what they're learning. And the teachers are saying, what are we teaching? So everyone's clueless. At the end of the day, they might know that this is the present tense, but they don't know actually how to use it in any meaningful context. Okay, so hopefully our classrooms are not like this with question marks all over the place. So let's quickly look at the principles of CLT teaching. Richards and Rogers in 2001 says the key principles of CLT is that it must be communicative. That means that you're using it to communicate authentically. You're interviewing somebody, you're answering questions, you're writing a cover letter for a job application, you're filling in a form and you're talking about it. All right, task-based, it must be related to some kind of task, that you're doing a meaningful task, that you are interviewing, you are asking questions, you are writing an email, you are complaining in a very nice way. You all know how to complain a lot, especially about marks. That's task-based, okay? I'm going to show you how to write complaining letter, bad news letter, which is quite a positive way, and often you can get what you want in a nice way without starting negatively in. So you never say, I am complaining. That is not a nice way to start. You say, I would just maybe neutral. I would like to talk about my marks. What is the reason? And then what is the problem? Okay, we'll get to that later. Meaningful. Yes, it must be relevant to their lives and meaningful. So it must be something they're interested in, something that they're relating to. Like I said, bullying again is a whole issue. Gender-based violence is an issue. Substance abuse is an issue, and it makes sense to them as well to talk about it. So these are the language learning requirements. If you're following the CLT principle, is that it must be active in your class. It means it must be talking. It must be meaning making through the use of collaboration. They're going to work together. Two of them are going to work on a group project. They're going to present as a group. They're going to solve problems maybe by surveying their community about different issues. And they're going to maybe actually plot the rainfall and the use of water in their houses. These are all problem-solving type of activities. They're going to be reading critically. What is this author trying to say, or this writer trying to say, and what is the bias in the way it is being expressed? So the critical thinking. Purposeful writing, as I said, writing a cover letter, completing a CV, those are purposeful writing activities. Inviting someone to come and speak to you at your school, thanking your coach for great time and a good match that you've had. Responding to authentic materials. As I said, you can be sending in a job application. You're going to be interviewing somebody using their CV. These are all authentic materials. They're real life materials. Completing a quiz about your driver's license, learning text and things like that. And also using the higher orders cognitive skills, not only the what and the when, the remembering and the understanding, but also the creating, the analyzing, the synthesizing. These are all important cognitive skills to do. We're going to look at that now as well. So remember, they're going to learn through learner-centered tasks, not through teacher talking all the time, through them collaborating, through them problem solving. Even if they don't do it right, let them try it all the time. And that often means they've got to talk, and it's contextualized on an aspect, a learning context that they are now working through. It's not taught in isolation worksheets of changing this all to the past tense, which has got no meaningful understanding. It's like the top of the iceberg when it all melts, and they're not going to understand it at all. So your activities in the classroom can be individual and independent. Okay, that is important. They have to do their own work, but there's a lot of pair and group work where they share and they collaborate. This is what the world's all about, sharing and collaborating. Information gap activities where they complete things by filling in what has been left out. Research-driven projects, as I said, questionnaires, surveys, solving problems, or going researching an issue and coming up with solutions to it. Okay. Very interesting little figure here is about retention rates when we're learning. We've got different teaching methods. Some are passive, which means it's lecturing like I'm doing now. If you're just reading, it's quite a passive when you're getting your students just to read. Audio visual, where they're hearing and they're seeing, which is maybe like this video, it's only 20%, so you're not going to remember very much from it. That's why Joshua always asks me for the PowerPoints, because he wants to read as well. And demonstrating, when you show someone how to do, they might remember 30%. Okay, my daughter showed me how to unravel something, and I tried to do it this morning, but I didn't get it quite right. I must practice it now. Right, so those are only going to give you 30% of retention. But if you're getting together in a group and discussing something, that's 50%. That's why discussion is so important. If you get them to practice, they must now take what they've learned and practice it. Like me, I'm just going to practice what I was doing this morning so I can become better at it. So practice is always important, 75%. And if you get them to teach others, 90% is retained. So that is very, very important. Passive methods, lecturing, bad, okay, only 5%. And participatory, good, especially teaching others. If you can use these practices in your classroom, remember, they are going to retain far more of what you're telling them. This is the learning pyramid again, right from the lecturing at the top, which means nothing, right to the teaching, the 90% is so important. Okay, so resources for CLT lessons, they've got to be real life. You've got to communicate if you're using them. So if you're doing a CLT lesson and it's not a real life situation and you're not getting your student to communicate and interact, it's not a CLT lesson. If you are teaching grammar like this little cartoon, English interrogative constructions. Now, what is that? It's asking questions: when, why, wherefore. And she says, teacher putting her glasses on, the auxiliary verb, do you all know what auxiliary verbs are? Okay, is, are, were, was, which normally appears after the subject. He is, he was, they were, man is, must move to sentence initial position. Now, what does that actually mean? I mean, it's frightening to listen to work like that. And the one student in the class says, what's a verb? Does you know what a verb is? So just remember that not everybody is fixated on rules. Rather, let's put it into practice. Okay. No, we don't teach like that. So we're going to follow the 4 C's in the curriculum. If we tune a CLT lesson, we have content that's meaningful and relevant to them. We're going to use communication. They're going to talk and they're going to discuss and they're going to collaborate. They're going to use their higher order skills like evaluating, creating, synthesizing, analyzing, and not only remembering and understanding. And we're also going to be very cognizant of their cultures. Can we mix groups together? Can boys and girls mix? Almost the guys be together and the girls be together. What about how we address them? How do we respect them? And what is important to them? So you've got to understand the whole socio-cultural backgrounds so that you can actually be very respectful of your students in the classroom. And communication is always key. And I think if it's real relevant communication, we can build bridges over all these issues. And you're going to use all your language skills, not only reading, not only listening, not only speaking, not only writing. Everything is used together, and that's going to increase proficiency in the language. There's going to be speaking with the reading, and there's going to be listening with the writing. You're going to read your paragraphs to your class, and you're going to discuss what you've been writing, and all of that will lead to proficiency in the long run. Yes, all of those lead to fluency. So I'm going to go through 5 examples of how you can teach grammar in the classroom, those of you that love grammar. And the first one is adjectives. Okay, that's a describing word. I'm sure you all know that. So you've got to have some prior knowledge, and my prior knowledge is that they must know what a common noun is, like a man, table, and they must know what a proper noun is, the name of a place, a person, a month, book, and all those things. So they need that prior knowledge before you can start talking about adjectives. What do you ask the students to do? Tell them to bring a picture or a photograph, something they like. If they've got smartphones, they can use their smartphones. If they haven't got, you can have a whole pile of newspapers in your classroom, magazines, and they can go and select something. But more than likely, they will be able to find a picture that they'll find interesting to bring to class. And here's a few that I downloaded from the internet. This elephant resting his trunk on the car, quite an interesting situation there. What about just testing our temperatures with COVID? Everywhere you go, they test your temperatures. Our new way of living, new normal. The stay at home during curfews, lockdown when we weren't allowed to go out last year. I think we were coming out of lockdown about this time last year. We've all experienced this as well. And what about being in queues? I was in a queue yesterday at Spa, and everyone had to move further away because we were all too near to each other. So to keep those little lines. But if you look at this little queue here, some people have got their masks on, some haven't. They're quite close to each other as well. But this could be the picture that a student may have brought. So the pair activities is they must write 5 interesting sentences about this picture. Okay, then underline all the nouns. So they might be speaking about the man who looks quite sick there or tired. And you can say the man is standing in the queue with his trolley. All right, but now you have to insert describing words. So the tired man is standing in the long queue with his gray trolley. So now I've put some adjectives into it. So they've written 5 sentences. Then they're going to underline all the nouns they've used, man, trolley, queue, or all your nouns. And then you're going to try and put some, as a group, as a pair, you're going to put some adjectives in, and then you're going to highlight the adjectives of use. So you're going to then, it says highlight them, but if you look at the next sentence, it says add details, okay, but do not underline the adjective. So you've worked on this, you've added more adjectives, but you haven't underlined them when you've sent it back to you. You've highlighted them, but you're not underlining. Hope that makes sense. Then you can exchange a paragraph with another group, and they've got to go and underline all your adjectives. So they've got to go and recognize where the adjectives are. Then you're going to get your own one back, and you're going to check what they've done on your paragraph. You can also read it to the class and discuss how you can make it better. They might say, well, you can't just say the man was standing, or you must rather say the exhausted man. And you don't just say the long queue, you must say the not social distancing queue or something like that to make it more descriptive. And then what will happen independently, they will now go and write their own descriptive paragraph and highlight all the adjectives. There's your theme, it's about adjectives, and they've used relevant material to write the paragraphs using understanding the noun use, and then they'll also be highlighting their adjectives. Okay, I think they can do it. Okay. Right, this is about a movie called The Life of Pi. It's about an Indian family that had to leave India, and they had a lot of zoo animals, okay, and they put these on the ship, and they were going to go from India, and they're going to re-immigrate to Canada in Montreal. And a huge storm came, and the ship went down, and the only person to survive was P, and one Bengal tiger. And the whole film was about the adventure of what the 16-year-old had to go to make friends with the tiger, and how they had to learn to understand each other so they could survive. Okay, so this is a bit of the story. You can go and download this from anywhere. You've got the ship sank. It made, I think, I can't see the words behind me, a monstrous metallic burp, and it goes right to the end. And there you can see Richard Parker is the name of the Bengal tiger. And in the second paragraph, it's talking about Richard Parker. It's all direct speech, so you can use that as well. And he was struggling to stay on the surface of the water. So what you do as a teacher, or get your other classes to do, you're going to go and cut the sentences into strips and put them in envelopes. Then in pairs or threes, they're going to arrange the sentences into meaningful discourse that makes sense. It might not be exactly the same as what is on this slide, but as long as it makes sense. And you can put the first sentence in bold, the ship sank, okay, highlight that, and they will know that that's the first sentence. There it is. There's the lifeboat, and now they've got together as friends. And there it goes on, the whole story, lots of direct speech. He had seen me, also indirect speech, and they will do the same thing. So you could give them different sections, different groups, different sections, cut it up into strips, rearrange it, and then they can check each other's as well, evaluating it. You can do the same thing with a poem, cut it up into strips. The first line of the poem you can highlight, dialogues, prose, interviews, comic strips, mix them up. And there's lots of interesting things that you can do with comic strips as well, and they can put it in the right order. So you've got lots of variety of sentence structures and making it meaningful and cohesive. Go on to number 3 now, making predictions, which is also a very good method to learn things. This is to do with movie posters. You can pin them up on the wall for a few days ahead of time, print copies of the movie reviews. Yeah, I've got the set work with The Great Gatsby with Leonardo DiCaprio in it. We've got the Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, which you might have read as well. And then we've got the 007, Daniel Craig in Skyfall. So you've got these movie posters and you can put them up around and encourage them to look at it for a few days. And then you start your task. The worksheet 1, individually, they're going to go and look at all the posters and carefully, and for each of the posters, they're going to write a sentence on what do they like about the poster and what do they not like about the poster. Okay, so they have to express that. And then they've got to select one of the posters that appeals the most to them and say why. Okay, so this whole thing, they must explain why you say you like the 007 Skyfall or you like the Breaking Dawn one. Okay, now you get in on to example 4, group work. And we're still with the movie reviews, but they're working in 3s now. Then they're going to decide which genre does each of the movies belong to. Are they comedy? Are they action? Are they horror? Are they science fiction? Are they, what do you call it, set work type one? So you've got to think of all a classic type of genre that they are. What visual details suggest that there might be action? Okay, for instance, here we've got Daniel Craig lying back, ready to shoot his revolver. Very much an action movie, so they'll have to say why they're saying it's that. We've got Breaking Dawn, you might say it's horror, because it's the vampires and the ghouls and they're all dressed in black, and you've got this misty, scary witches like ring there as well. So that could be a horror. And then you might have this classic drama as well with The Great Gatsby. So why do you say that? You might say because they're wearing the 50s outfits, the bow ties, what they're wearing, the type of buildings. To me, it's definitely the clothing. That's what makes me think it's a classic. Then discuss their worksheet 1 responses. So from where they said what appeals to them, what doesn't appeal to them, and which one do they prefer. They can discuss that in their groups. Then what do they think the movies are all about, to discuss that in their groups. Why do they think it's about that? And which movie would you like to watch and why? So those what they will discuss in their groups. Quite interesting relating it to these nice posters. Okay, now we're still in the group work and the movie reviews. So now they're going to look at a review of the movie. In your view, does the reviewer favor the movie, not favor the movie, or is the reviewer neutral? So then you give them the different reviews. And here's the one for Twilight Saga. Okay, so is the reviewer in favor of the movie or not? Okay, and if you look what the reviewer says, parents need to know. Okay, so do you think this reviewer is in favor? Because he's saying the parents need to know this. And you'll see that the second half of the Breaking Dawn book, there are very dramatic battles between the Cullens and Volturi, and there are several characters are tortured, violently beheaded, burned, ripped apart by werewolves, and so on. Shocking deaths, okay? And then towards the end, they talk about the sensuous love scenes, okay? The close-ups of bare skin and faces and a glimpse of Bella's breast, and then long, sensuous, passionate kisses. So you might say, no way. After I read this, my kids are not going to go and see this movie. Okay, so maybe older people, adults go and see it, but definitely not young kids. Okay. The next one, this is the Great Gatsby one. The reviewer says, you look what he says here. I'm not here to praise him, but he just loved Nick in the movie. He says he's never seen a man like this. He's just like, didn't he have to try and even play the part? Because no man could be so wonderful as Nick was. And what does he say about Daisy? He says, Daisy, she depicts the most shallow, useless woman one should ever keep a human, that should never keep a human a goal, okay. And saying he really doesn't like her. But what he really says, even if he doesn't know people, he would really like to get to know Nick more, which was Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie. And then what about Skylark with Daniel Craig? And it says here, Skyfall is sky high. So he's really rating the movie very well. Says the best Sean Connery. Well, I like Sean Connery, the original James Bond. And he said, this is the best movie that Daniel Craig's ever done. And he says the other movies he's been in haven't been good, but this is really sky high. Okay. Then examine the language carefully in each of the reviews. How does the review of Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, Part 2 differ from the other two? So how does it, why is Twilight Saga different to the other two? And you can actually do a differentiation there. Having read the reviews, are you convinced you would still like to watch the movie of your choice? If you don't like violence, maybe you don't want to go and see Breaking Dawn Part 2. Maybe if you like classic pieces, you really want to go and see how Leonardo DiCaprio was such an amazing man as Nick. Give reasons for your answer. And then your application is individual when you're examining the language and you're giving those answers. And then you can go and choose your own movie and write your own review about it. So this is all leading up to that. So this is your group work sentence and that kind of structure, looking at the language. The last example is a critical language awareness, CLA, which will also be coming on to later on this year. And remember, language is power, and how we use language is power. It can build people up, it can destroy people, it can motivate people, it can comfort people, it can inspire people, but it can also be very hurtful. Okay, so this is the power of language. It's got power, it can make people very unequal, it also can give justice or injustice, it can promote identity or it can break identity. So that is the power of the tongue. Okay. I quite like this. Remember, language is a superpower that you've got, and it can inspire or it can destroy anything. Like it's your part of to build identity, to build ethnicity, to build your race, your social status, your religion is all part of that. And it can be that very destructive part, but it can also be a very positive part. What kind of language person are you? So you can help students to enhance their critical awareness of language and acquire what they need to do by looking at what the CAPS document says about CLA. And here is a whole list straight from CAPS, looking at use of fact and opinion, okay, direct and implied meaning, the real meaning, denotation and connotation, the whole thing about what has been left out in the writing and what has put in the writing. What about the interpretation of visual literacy? This whole thing about prejudice, discrimination, bias, stereotyping, assumptions, arguments, all related to CAPS. So go and read that part on CLA, and this will help your students become more critical. So even in assignment 1, if you want to actually look at language use, the social discourse, you can look at use of facts and opinions, direct and implied meaning, social denotation and connotation, and you're also doing the visual literacy part as well. Right, okay. So the critical thinking model, which is quite a fun thing. I'm going to look at Ramaphosa's speeches, one last year and one he did now just after the uprisings in July. And this is a model that you can do to generate critical thinking in your classes. You've got a topic or issue. It might be uprising, it might be COVID again, it might be bullying, all those issues that you've got. And you first have the description part where you say, what was it? When did this happen? Who happened, where? All right, so that is, you first describe it. This is general critical thinking, answering those questions. Why did it happen? Why was the boy bullied? Okay, how was he bullied? Okay, so that kind of how and why did this happen? And then finishing off with an evaluation. So what if somebody came and intervened? What if his mother found out? What happened if the teacher did that? So what? Okay. So what does this mean for other people? So what does this mean for schools? Okay. You answer those questions. Now, what next? What must happen now? So looking at this, you can actually have a whole model to generate some kind of critical thinking by asking all these kinds of questions. You can put your topical issue in the middle, bullying, and then give the whole description, then the analysis, and then the evaluation. Okay, I'm going to look at Ramaphosa's speech last year, about July. I went and downloaded it from the internet. There's the whole speech. I went to www.wordclouds. There is the link at the bottom. This is when Ramaphosa takes South Africa out of a hard lockdown and lifts cigarette and alcohol ban. And what I do is I copied that whole section from the internet, and I pasted it in a word cloud. And there is the link there, https://www.wordclouds.com. And then you can see all the words that are written, like what we do on Menti as well. The ones used the most are the most prominent words used all the time. So if you want to look at word choices, you can look here. Here's his word name: Ramaphosa, lockdown, South Africa, holiday, people, decline, COVID, lockdown, all those words, plus the smaller words which were not used very often. And I did one today on when he visited eThekwini with the whole public violence and deployment of security forces from the website, the presidency. And I went and pasted his speech into an Africa shape. And you can see the biggest word there is will, what we are going to do, all the plans that are in place. And then you can see violence is very much at the fore, ensure, the encouraging words, vaccines also came into it, because I was also speaking about COVID. Businesses is pretty big because a lot of the businesses suffered, affected, infections. So you've got the whole thing about COVID, but you've got this whole idea of what happens with violence. So one way, if you want to go and check to see which words are being used and what is the most common words being used, is to go onto word cloud, paste the text in, and you get a lovely shape as well, and you can see which words are actively being used. Yeah, again, that's the word repetitions, and yeah, you can see what the bigger words were: South Africa, all the way to can. These are the bigger words, smallest to biggest. You can see travel, infections, declining numbers, all important, and then the smaller more words going down from unemployed to midnight. So these are the smaller words, and you can try and work out what is the dominant context for what he's speaking about just by looking at word clouds, which we do with our mentees when I say you're all excited to be back. Okay, so grammar games, it's coming to an end now. We can play in the class. Good way to expand sentences. You want sentence development. You can give them just an opening sentence like, we stood outside for 20 minutes. And then you can say, okay, you must add an adjective to that. We've done adjectives already. We stood outside for 20 miserable minutes. Okay, so I've added the word miserable. When did you do this? This morning, we stood outside for 20 miserable minutes. Where? This morning, we stood on the sidewalk in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes. How? This morning, we stood shivering, okay, it was cold, on a snow-covered sidewalk in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes, okay? The last one is, why did we do this? This morning, we stood shivering on a snow-covered sidewalk in front of a school for 20 miserable minutes while the fire chief investigated the cause of the fire alarm. Okay, so it's actually a lovely way to extend sentences. Okay, so that's one way you can do. You can use any kind of opening sentence. What about ways to hook your readers? Okay, start with a question. Who left tiny footprints in my bedroom? What about an exclamation? Oh no, I forgot my book bag in the school bus again. What about repetition? Yes, yes, yes. And finally got an A in maths, okay? And what about adjectives? The young blonde woman was tall and had legs as thin as spaghetti. So these are ways to hook your reader. If you're looking for an opening sentence, use one of these and you've got a very nice sentence to start your paragraph. This is actually quite a nice what you can do on different days of the week, which you can focus on. And it's Monday mistakes, where they can go and correct a piece of writing. Tuesday terms, where they look at different words. I think the one is bombard. What does that mean? The other one is, I think it's accentuate, I think it is. I can't read that. But those are different words and they must use them, look up their meanings, use them in sentences. Yes, Shakespeare, the wise words on Wednesdays. There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Discuss that. Thursday thoughts. What age do you consider to be old? Okay. Do you think age is just a number? I think as you get older, you think it is just a number, but when you're young, maybe it's not just such a number. Then figurative language is personification and similes and different kinds of slides of handouts on a Friday. So you could go through this on Monday. Every day you can have a different theme that I think it's a 2-week theme. I think these are all, I've got the link there. It's from Pinterest. So you can get a lot of things from there. This is quite a nice grammar game with dice. If you get a 1, you've got to list 2 coordinating conjunctions. If you get a 2, you've got to say what the difference is between an adjective and an adverb and give one example of each. So there's a whole lot of things that you can do with just dices in the class if you've got You can be sitting separately, social distancing, throw the dice, and you've got to say these things. This is a nice icebreaker. It's saying going fishing, and you have all these little paper fish in a bowl, and you pull them out as the start of a class. What is your favorite place to read? That's number 2. Number 7, what's one thing you want to learn this year? So these are different things you could chat about in the class. This is another game, also from Pinterest. It's grammatical constructions. It's quick thinking with use of a ball there. The teacher throws the ball and says Tando, and he throws the ball to Tando, and Tando must catch the ball and use a verb with it. Tando runs, Tando sleeps. Okay, so he's using the verb agreement with the subject. Tando then throws the ball to his classmate. I think it's going to be quite dangerous. And he says they, and then he must use the right verb. They speak, they learn, not they speaks or they learn. So they can do this as a grammar construction. Then complexity can be added as you get to maybe grade 10s, 11s, 12s. They must add in an adverb. He runs fast. Add in an adjective. Beautiful Tandu runs exceptionally fast. Okay, so you could have different ways to complete the sentence. This is a subject-verb agreement game. These little games, little spaces, how they can move on. Which one is correct? My dad and I don't like bowling, or my dad and I doesn't like bowling. So they've got to answer that correctly, and then they can move on their snakes and ladder type game. Here's a prefix game. You've got complete, and you've got different prefixes. What will you add to complete? Complete, okay? What about cycle? Recycle, terminate, exterminate. Okay, so you can add all your prefixes on there. I didn't actually look at this as a common noun versus proper noun, and you've got different basketballs, and you've got to throw them into the right thing. So on your basketball, you might have pillow. It's a common noun, so you've got to throw it into the common noun. I don't think you do this in the classroom, but maybe you've got netball fields outside, you go and try to do that. So getting to know people, asking questions. Teacher pins the name of a famous person on the back of each learner. I've just got voice because I like watching it. There's Miley Cyrus, okay. Then we've got Nick Jonas, we've got Kelly Clarkson, John Legend, and of course Gwen Stefani and Blake Sheldon. I don't know if you know them, but you could use sports, you could use anything that they know and they're interested in, singers, and put it at the back of them. And then the learners have to ask the peers questions without asking directly. So they'll say, you don't know what the name is of the person on your back, so you say, does this person play a sport? Is this person a scholar here at the school? What type of music do they play? So you can try and ask questions to find out who you are. At the end, names are revealed until everyone has come to a conclusion, and they've got a chance to see who they were. So it's one way to teach them to ask questions. Predicting activities, tense practice. Again, ask them to bring a picture that's got an action, a man running, child crying, something like that. Ziplining, protesting, having fun. And the teacher can ask what happened next on the board. So they've got this picture, and she's going to say what happened next. They had to go and do this. Okay, so that means they're using the past perfect. Groups discusses and expresses suggestions. The answers they can answer using words like yesterday, what did they do? This morning, what happened? After that, what happened? From 2 p.m., what happened? Tomorrow. So you'll be using will. You'll be using this morning, they went, they are going, your present continuous. So you can use different shortened verbs to actually express that tense. There you go, the tenses. Okay. I'm just about finished, but this is your online tracking. We can have a question and answer forum relating to CLT practices. In your post, you must have at least 50 words in your post. Remember, it takes 30 minutes before you can see the responses of others. You've got to comment again on at least 2 other students' posts about CLT. Answer one question. There are different questions for each course. So if you are TEFF, it'll be a different question for TFS. Okay. TEHS, THF, so they're all different. You've got a little introduction on ECI, of course, grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary are necessary for effective communication. With communication language teaching methods, 2 primary approaches may be taken, and this is all written on ECI. And then you've got your question. So each one will have a different question. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And depending on what course you're taking, you will have to provide a 50-word answer for, say, for instance, number 4. How can grammar be contextualized in the language class? And you're going to have to try and answer that. And then 2 people must comment on the different responses. Okay, so that's it. That's all for tonight. Activities and resources for grammar teaching. There's a cartoon. It's me and Lawrence was going. Lawrence and I were going, the mom corrects him. Yeah, well, anyway, we seen. Mother says, not we seen, we saw. Well, you know them, those guys. Wow. She says, those. What's your speech, Michael? Now, what were you going to tell me? He says, I've forgotten. So, lovely little exercise using the past tense. And that's why English is such fun. And that's why we love English. I hope you love English. Have a great evening. Go back to ECI, check what's happening on week 3. Go back and check what's been added to your assignment. And have a great week. I'll chat to you soon. Bye for now.